Now you might say, well, it can't go on AM4, surely. And that would be pretty much accurate. I mean, there's no way. I would say it could possibly go on AM4, other than the sheer size of A, the die, and B, it's quad channel. I don't know why I'm having difficulty saying that today. Quad channel memory. So in reality, it just doesn't make sense in that regard. So it obviously has to be a new platform. Do remember there were a couple of roadmaps which leaked for the client side as well as the mobile side and desktop side for client roadmaps. Now they go up to 2018, and they said the Pinnacle Ridge is going to have up to 8 Zen cores. However, that is Pinnacle Ridge. And do remember that those roadmaps are for quite basically their partners, so that would be board vendors. So it's possible that those board vendors have not simply been privy to this information. What's my take on it? I wouldn't be surprised either way. I mean, it's pretty obvious that AMD are looking to scale their product to pretty much anything and everything they can sell Zen 2. At the end of the day, it's money. It's like me saying to you, well, would you like to sell to fewer people, or would you like to sell to more people? I don't think any business in the history of humanity has been like, well, gee, I'd like to actually limit our customer base as much as humanly possible. Of course you're going to sell to more people. My question is, like, have they thought of this at this particular moment in time? Well, that's a bigger mystery. Also, the way the rumour seems to have it is that they've made changes to the Zen architecture. It's possible, however, because they're saying that they've ironed out gaming performance of the processor, it's possible, however, that they're referring instead to the BIOS and the actual, changes with the software itself, which would make some level of sense. In other words, they've changed the drivers, they've maybe changed the BIOS, maybe some of the microcode on the CPU, I don't know. I mean, ultimately we just don't know this stuff. And it's like a bit weird in that regard, because architecture changes, I think that would piss off a lot of early Zen adopters. Like, imagine if you heard in like 4 months time or 6 months time there was going to be a revision of Zen which ironed out the ironed out the problems in the Zen architecture, and they could not be done via software, it was hardware only, and that would fix gaming performance. I don't say it in such a tone, all the debates. I personally believe it's a lot of BIOS related and software optimization issues, rather than actually something inherently wrong with the architecture of the CPU, which is basically what AMD have told their customers. So I'm personally more likely to take these rumours as AMD will have by that time fixed the software, and by software and the BIOS, the drivers, the support to their customers, all of that stuff. Then perhaps that would make some level of sense. Regardless, this is a rumour which I can see having some level of validity, even if I don't see it happening now. I can certainly see it happening in the future, because AMD once again have been very aggressive when they're talking about server markets, when they're talking about processors for professionals, for compute uses, for data farms, God knows what, all the way down to mobile uses. So that would be, for example, a low-end laptop. So for them to scale this and to have an intermediary, I can see that happening. Let me know what your thoughts are. Take care of yourselves. For now. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Rick Game Silicon video we're going to be discussing AMD yet again. We can't seem to leave the bloody company alone. At this rate they're going to think we're stalking them, I say. This time, however, we're going to be discussing the launch of the Ryzen 5, as well as the SKUs, the pricing, the performance of the chips, and other bits and bobs. And then we're going to focus squarely on Zen 2. That's right, we have news of Zen's successor, which is going to start creeping into the market at some point next year. We'll get into that in just a second. I also want to give a very small update, although I'm probably going to have a vlog in the next couple of days. So today is my birthday, so not huge amounts of stuff is going to come from me because, well, it's my birthday. And I've also been doing a lot of work today. I've had the new internet installed. I've fixed one of the
benchmark rigs, test systems we've had for capture. And now that I've got internet here, I can actually start doing a lot of work, whereas beforehand I need to keep taking files to Amy's house, and it was just basically a living nightmare for content creation purposes. So now we can start getting back to normal. We are going to be reviewing a Kaby Lake system, which has been sent to us, or more specifically a motherboard and CPU, so we're going to review that. We've just been sent a new GPU from Zotac, so we're going to review that as well. We've got memory, which I've not been able to review properly because one of our Skylake motherboards decided to explode, which was another thing. So we have a Skylake motherboard coming in a few days' time, and we're also going to be trying the 3000 MHz RAM that we were sent with Kaby Lake, so that's coming. A number of you have messaged me concerning the application, called Thread Lasso regarding Ryzen. So I've been testing with that over the past day or two, as well as disabling and enabling CPUs with Ryzen. So I have gotten that, plus a couple of other requests, so I am working on those. But just because the the rig that was actually capturing hardware was the performance was bollocks, quite frankly, at my place, I haven't been able to do anything, so I had to basically reinstall loads of SATA cables, format the hard drive because the entire install was corrupted. It was just basically a thing. But that's all done, so my content is going to resume back to normal over the next day or so that's fantastic. But for those of you who are not regular viewers, you've probably managed to sit through that and thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Well, you're going to get yourself into a 6-core Ryzen 5 1600X for $249 US on April the 11th, my friend. It's a bit of a weird situation actually with the Ryzen 5s and Ryzen 7s actually with their pricing. Specifically, there's around a $60 price difference between the top of the line SKU down to the 1400. And frankly, I just think that's a bit weird in terms of the pricing. Sorry, I mean a $70 difference, not a $60 difference. But when you start looking at the prices, it's like $249 for the 1600X with 12 threads at 6 cores, of course, at 4 GHz boost. Well, there's so little difference between it and the price of a 1600. I'm very tempted to say, well, gee, what's the point in the 1600? I would much rather have those guaranteed additional 400 megahertz plus possibly better quality silicon. And then you're going to say, well, okay, the 1500X is a pretty good buy because it's only $20 more than the 1400, and there's obviously a 300 megahertz difference. But then you're going to say, well, okay, but you can get an extra 4 threads for only $30 more. But then you've got, once again, you keep going into that thing where you can just spend just a few dollars more and get a processor which is considerably better value for money, or at least higher performance value. Speaking of performance, AMD have reiterated that these TPUs will, of course, outperform Intel, at least in Cinebench. They've told us giggity, 69% faster than the 7600K in Cinebench. Obviously, game performance and other applications will differ depending on your setup. I do believe, however, that the Ryzen 5s might be the best value out of all of the processors. I say that because when they arrive on the 11th of April, you could conceivably get that plus a decent B350 motherboard for a really good price, and it would probably sit at the price point, the performance levels of like a 5820K in terms of, value, in terms of the level of performance maybe a little bit higher, but in terms of value proposition, it's really good. And you can couple that with a pretty decent GPU, something like a GTX 1070 or a 1080, and if you're doing streaming, it's pretty much perfect. But also it lends itself to other tasks. For example, if you do a little bit of 3D modeling, if you do a little bit of Blender work, Photoshop, whatever, you're good to go. So this processor is probably going to be like the bargain CPU. Speaking of bargain, Zen Plus. I don't know actually why I said bargain. That didn't really make much sense considering the lead-in. But we are going to, however, focus on Pinnacle Ridge as well as Zen 2. So, just so we're all aware, currently, of course, Zen is being released on the AM4 platform. AM4 is going to be supported for some time, including Zen 2 and Zen 3. Concurrently, AMD are working on both CPUs, that would be Zen 2 as well as Zen 3 architectures, but we now have some information concerning Zen 2. We don't know, however, what other shinies AMD will release on the AM4 platform. So, for example, let's say you currently have an X370 board, alright? Well, in, let's say, 2018, 2019, when PCIe 4 probably becomes normal, is that going to convince you to upgrade your board? Therefore, AM4 is not really that important of a platform. It's just a platform. Well, maybe. It depends, I guess, on what you're going to be utilizing your system for. Regardless of all of that, we don't know everything about Zen 2. What we do know is it's likely going to have some IPC games, judging entirely from what AMD have told us in the past, that they don't just want clock speed boosts. They're obviously taking a dig at Intel and Kaby Lake there, and instead they want to basically reinvigorate the architecture each release. We can also make the assumption that higher clock speeds are going to be a thing, so presumably that would mean the equivalent of, like, I don't know what the hell it's going to be called. I mean, I'm going to assume it would be like the Ryzen 7 2800X. That would make sense. I'm guessing. I don't know. Tell me. But let's assume that that's true. That would mean the 2800X would probably feature clock speeds of like 4.3 to 4.5 gigahertz. Let's say 10%, 4.4. AMD are also hoping to consolidate their APU lineup across both mobile platforms as well as desktop. So currently, there is Raven Ridge, which is going to be launching this year. It supports 4 Zen cores on an FP5 BGA package, which is mobile orientated, and they're also going to launch an APU for the desktop, which is Bristol Ridge. However, in 2018, only Raven Ridge will be present in its portfolio, and that will be for both mobile and desktop platforms. Pinnacle Ridge, however, is going to be on Zen 2 architecture, and it does confirm that we're also going to see Zen 2 with up to 8 cores. This does mean that, at least in theory, we're not going to see like, I don't know, like a 12 core Zen CPU. At least for this particular CPU lineup for Pinnacle Ridge. Who knows, maybe in like a month later they might change their mind. Maybe they will release more processors. Maybe they are still working on this. Maybe they've not made a decision. We just don't know. However, AMD's lineup is pretty solid at the moment. Presumably, we're going to see quite the increase in various processors from both AMD and Intel, because they're going to be ramping things up. We also know that AMD are going to be hosting a technology summit. I think it's tomorrow, if memory serves, and we can probably expect some Vega news. Whether we will see anything about that, well, we just don't know huge amounts. AMD will also be showing off more stuff about the Ryzen processor. I don't exactly know what. I'm going to assume they're probably going to wax lyrically about the performance of Ryzen 5 and possibly give us a little more information regarding the research and development of Vega. I'm hoping for more information regarding the performance of the chips, but they seem really tight-lipped about that, exactly how the SKU is going to work. We might also, if we're really lucky, get some insight into what the hell the RX 500 series is. We talked about that just yesterday. It appears, and obviously appearances can be deceiving, but it appears from the rumours to essentially be Polaris, but with higher clock speeds. So for example, the RX 580 is going to have about 100 megahertz on top of the turbo clocks, which is not too, or rather boost clocks, which is not too bad, especially if you've not bought a Polaris 10 GPU. So for example, let's say you haven't bought an RX 480, but you're in the market for a GPU around that price, then the RX 5 series becomes a lot tastier. But if you've already got a 480, you're going to be like, probably not that interested in upgrading. In which case, really, you're left with either Vega or the possibility of a GTX 1070 or possibly a Pascal refresh, but we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, he says, with some trepidation in his voice. I know it's been a bit of an odd couple of days because of the video issues we've had with production, but those shall be resolved. I'm going to go edit this video, and then the rest of my day is going to be doing a little bit of work and actually enjoying the fact I've got internet. So that's nice. I'm not joking when I say the internet here has been shocking. And one of the reasons behind that, from what the engineer told me, is that basically the line was damaged internally in the ground. So whenever there was, like, you know, water, And considering it's currently March here in the UK, water is kind of a regular occurrence. Basically, it went into the line and basically knocked out the internet for the entire area. Well, at least my flat. So it was just a nightmare. So they've installed a new line which is exclusive to me now. So hopefully that won't be an issue. But it basically went between 3 states. State 1, it was downloading at a decent speed, not fast, but a couple hundred kilobytes a second. I was like, okay, this isn't great, but at least I can work. Then it went to like 2 kilobytes a second, which is what I consider to be takes the piss stage. And then stage 3 is just, it didn't work. So, yeah. And it was like 50% of, not working at all. 25% of it downloaded at 2 or 3 kilobytes a second. And the rest of the time it was like, it worked okay. So it was like a gamble. It was like, a circus of values internet, if you will. Anyway, I'm going to run off now. So, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now. And yes, I'm struggling to remember which screen's which because I've got a new setup and it's really weirding me out. Bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul, and in this Red Gamer Typical video, we're going to be discussing Ryzen 7 and the thread scheduler, specifically some comments from AMD where they not only addressed thread scheduling in Windows 10, but also SMT. It has been a massive topic on the internet over the past week or so, and we're going to be settling things, well, probably not, but let's face it, AMD are at least giving some comments on it, so perhaps we have at least somewhat of a different perspective. And we're going to start the video out, however, with the RX 500 series, potentially the release date of the damn things. So let's get one thing straight. The RX 500 series is not Vega, at least from what we understand. It is essentially a rebrand of the Polaris lineup that you have now. We'll get into the specifications, but there are a few changes. But basically, the original release date was supposed to be April 4th. Unsurprisingly, because let's face it, we'd expect to see at least some leaks by now, it seems to be pushed back until April 18th. Now, there is no confirmation on these release dates. AMD has told us that this is the release date, but this is according to a Chinese website known as My Drivers. Now, it's kind of weird because the market is not exactly enthusiastic about these cards. That's putting it mildly. However, if you are in the market, if you were thinking of purchasing, let's say, an RX 480, just for example, you would probably still be better to wait and buy the 580. Why? Well, essentially it's a like-for-like replacement in cost, at least that's what the rumours tell us, but you get extra performance. So while, for example, the number of cores, the number of TMUs, ROPs, all that jazz are the same, the boost clocks have gone up almost 100 MHz, memory clocks remain the same, but there are some minor changes throughout the different range of SKUs, and this trickles all the way down to like the 460 onwards, or rather the 560, I guess you could say now. So it's essentially free performance. If you already have a 480, you're probably going to be a bit like, eh. But if you don't have a card, and let's say you've got an older GPU, just for the sake of argument, like a 280X or whatever, and you've been kind of waiting, kind of ironically enough, a couple of you have actually messaged me on Facebook asking, should you wait? Well, it's about a month, roughly, assuming these rumours are accurate. So it's like, is, 100 MHz-ish, maybe 5-10% perhaps, of additional performance for. Well, it is down to you, isn't it? Personally, I would say, if you can get like a highly clocked factory model RX 480, then maybe that would be good if you can get it at a bargain price. On the other hand, if you're in no particular hurry, let's say you're building the rest of your PC, you're saving up your pennies or whatever, then perhaps it might be worth waiting for. Now, we're going to focus upon the most controversial topic that has been for some time. And that is Ryzen 7 and SMT as well as thread scheduling. So, there have been a lot of rumours
concerning this, and I don't think I really need to go into the whole semantics about, you know, what's happened, because many of you have been following it from the beginning. But basically, issues do not really rear their head at high resolution gaming, because even if you're running a 1080 Ti, if you're running at 4K, believe me, most likely the thing that gives out most is going to be the GPU, not the CPU. Unless you're running something really simple like, I don't know, Quake 2. Because at the end of the day, games are very intensive to render right now. But, let's face it, this is not going to be necessarily impacting everyone, but 1080p resolutions and situations where you're more CPU bound for some reason have had problems with Ryzen 7, and Intel CPUs have not consistently, because sometimes Intel do actually perform slightly worse than AMD, even in non-heavily multi-threaded games, but quite frequently AMD are not performing quite how you would expect. So, starting things out, AMD have commented, well, rather created a blog post for their community website, and this is from Robert Halleck, who we've had a couple of interviews with previously, might I add, and he said that we have investigated reports alleging incorrect thread scheduling on the Ryzen processors. Based upon our findings, AMD believes that Windows 10 thread scheduler is operating properly for Zen, and we do not presently believe it's an issue with the scheduler adversely utilizing logical and physical configurations of the architecture. As the extension of this investigation, we reviewed the topography logs generated by sysinternal's core info utility, and we've determined that an outdated version of this application was responsible for originating this incorrect data that was widely reported in the media, and the latest versions will produce the correct results. We've also reviewed the limited available evidence concerning performance deltas between Windows 7 and 10, and we do not believe there is an issue with the scheduling differences between the two versions. Any differences in performance can likely be attributed to software architecture's difference between these two OSs. Going forward, our analysis highlights that many applications are already making good use of cores, and there are many other applications that can better utilize the capabilities of our system. These opportunities are being actively worked on by development kits with over 300 systems worldwide. Above all, we would like to thank the community, and